The story begins when Tommy Riley, a high school student, is forced to leave his familiar life behind and move to a new place with his father due to unforeseen circumstances. However, their new home is located in the middle of a rundown neighborhood, where gangs dominate and everyday life becomes a struggle for survival. On his first day at the new school, Tommy is targeted by a group of local teenagers who are looking to harass him. To make matters worse,
You in my seat, boy?
he discovers that 3 of the bullies who picked on him on his way to school are in his class, making everything even more difficult. As a new student, Tommy didn't want to cause trouble with the troublemakers. So, when the group of students asked him to switch seats 3 times, he patiently complied. But by the 4th time, Tommy's patience ran out. He decided not to move and stood his ground, ignoring the annoyed glares from the bullies. The tension seemed on the verge of erupting, but fortunately, the teacher walked into the room and instructed the class to settle down. The bullies reluctantly obeyed, but not without threatening to deal with Tommy during recess. True to their word, they showed up at his spot during break, this time bringing along friends to intimidate him. But once again, Tommy was lucky to be saved when a rival gang appeared and intervened. The power struggle between the gangs had become a staple of the school, and one-on-one battles between the gang leaders, cheered on by the crowd of students, were no longer a rare sight. No one hesitated to use sharp weapons in these fights, because even the teachers knew that a one-on-one battle would soon end with no real winner. As if the trouble at school wasn't enough, Tommy also had to deal with debt collectors when he went home. In fact, the reason he and his dad had to move to a new place was because his father had fallen deep into gambling debt after his mother's death. And now, because of his father's troubles, Tommy had to face 2 debt collectors who came to the house with guns. Fortunately, they didn't hurt him, they just made threats and warned that the overdue debt had to be paid within 2 weeks. That night, Tommy was awakened when his father returned home. He asked about Tommy's first day at the new school, showing genuine concern, just like he always had, expressing his love for his son. Tommy decided to lie, telling his father that everything was fine, but his father wasn't easily convinced. He could tell that his son was hiding something. Eventually, Tommy confessed about the 2 debt collectors who had come to the house that afternoon, which deeply saddened his father. He realized that his mistakes had put the family in a difficult situation and promised Tommy that he would make things right. He revealed that he had just found a new job in another city with a higher salary, where he could pay off the debt and get their lives back on track. Tommy didn't mind living on his own for a while, as he was mature enough to take care of himself. To ease his father's burden, he even volunteered to wash dishes at a local restaurant owned by the parents of one of his classmates. However, one night, a group of thugs from school happened to see him working at the restaurant and decided to continue mocking him as they had before. At first, Tommy tried to endure their taunts, but when they shoved him and laughed at him, he couldn't take it any longer. Tommy immediately got up, knocking out 2 of the guys in the group. Just as he was ready to deal with the 3rd one, an old man unexpectedly intervened. It turned out he was Jack, a local boxing promoter. Pressed by Tommy's fighting style, Jack offered him a spot in an underground illegal fight, promising a payout of $600. However, Tommy immediately declined, demanding a fee of $1,250, and warned Jack that he could find someone else willing to fight for a lower price if he wasn't willing to meet his request. After some intense negotiations, Jack finally agreed to Tommy's terms. They shook hands in front of Dawn, the daughter of the restaurant owner. The next night, Tommy arrived at the underground fight venue, where Jack introduced him to Noah, the man who would be responsible for training and taking care of him during his time there. Noah immediately warned Tommy that the upcoming fight wouldn't be just any ordinary boxing match, it would be a real battle, where there were no rules and no one cared about fairness. But even more concerning, Tommy's opponent was Black Death, a notorious fighter known for his dirty tactics and willingness to do whatever it took to win. Surprisingly, Tommy ran into Romano, a classmate, who was shocked to learn that Tommy's first opponent was Black Death. Romano advised him to pay special attention to his opponent's right punch in the upcoming match. Following this advice, Tommy entered the ring, where the crowd had already placed their bets on Black Death's victory and cheered wildly as he made his entrance. Just as Noah had warned, the fight was completely lawless. From the very start, Black Death resorted to Lao, using his elbow to strike Tommy's temple, causing blood to begin trickling down his face. But the situation didn't stop there, as Black Death delivered a powerful blow to Tommy's groin. Despite his continuous dirty play, the referee turned a blind eye and all tricks were allowed in this ring. However, After some time, Black Death began to tire, giving Tommy the chance to counterattack. Tommy unleashed a series of precise strikes, knocking his opponent down and sending him crashing unconscious to the mat. In the end, Tommy won his first match, leaving the audience, the bettors, and even the investors in disbelief. But when he raised his hand to signal his victory, the entire arena erupted in cheers. The next day, Tommy was asked to meet with Jack's boss, Mr. Horn, to receive his payment. However, Horn was impressed with Tommy's fighting style from the night before and invited him to return to continue fighting for him. Despite that, Tommy firmly refused, stating that he only wanted the agreed upon amount of $1,250, nothing more, nothing less. As time passed, Tommy ran into Dawn, and she couldn't hide her disappointment upon learning that he had chosen the path of becoming a fighter in illegal matches. However, she also felt a sense of relief when she heard that he had only participated in one match and had no intention of continuing as a professional fighter. Everything seemed fine until Jack suggested that Tommy meet with Horn later that afternoon, and from there, things began to change. After a few conversations, Horn finally revealed that the two debt collectors who had come to Tommy's house were actually his subordinates. It got even worse when he learned that Tommy's father had recently fallen back into gambling and owed $15,000. However, Horn had no shortage of solutions. He suggested that Tommy become his fighter for a few matches in order to easily pay off his father's debt. As everyone expected, Tommy accepted the offer to help his father pay off the debt. On his way home from the meeting with Horn, Tommy happened to see his classmate Lincoln being chased by gang members. Deciding not to stand by, Tommy immediately intervened to save his friend. However, due to the large number of gang members, both of them had to flee from their pursuers. After escaping danger, during their conversation, Lincoln revealed that, despite being very young, he already had a wife and children. That's why Lincoln decided to become an illegal boxer, like Tommy, to make money and support his family. That night, Tommy decided to watch Lincoln fight, seeing his friend seemingly being overpowered by a larger opponent. However, Lincoln didn't let himself be defeated. He quickly turned the tide and won the fight impressively. As the match ended, Tommy's curiosity about Horn grew even more. After watching Lincoln's fight, Tommy decided to meet with Noah to learn more about Horn. Through their conversation, Tommy discovered that Horn was a legendary former boxer who had once won the world heavyweight title. Surprisingly, Horn had only lost once in his career. In the rematch that followed, he got his revenge by leaving his opponent with a lifelong injury. However, even a great fighter like Horn couldn't escape the ravages of time. After a serious leg injury and multiple surgeries, his prime came to an end when his legs could no longer endure. Horn was too old to return to the ring, so he decided to transition into becoming a boxing promoter, a job that not only earned him a lot of money but also spared him the risk of injury. A few days after Tommy began training, Dawn visited his home. She was concerned because he hadn't been going to school recently, and eventually Tommy opened up to her about the struggles in his family and the reasons that led him into the world of illegal boxing. Thankfully, Dawn was understanding and sympathetic to his situation, and from then on, they grew closer. Tommy's life began to change for the better since becoming a boxer, and Dawn was there with him every step of the way. Their relationship blossomed, and they started a romantic story together. In addition to building a close friendship with Romano and Lincoln, Tommy also enjoyed fun moments with them every day. However, an unexpected tragedy occurred one night during a fight. Romano, his friend, was facing off against Short, a boxer who was rated much lower than him. Throughout the match, Romano dominated and controlled the situation. But as the fight entered the fifth round, Short pulled a dirty trick, secretly sneaking a strange substance of his gloves, completely changing the course of the match. As the fight continued, Short immediately locked Romano in a headlock, forcing him to inhale the strange substance dripping from his gloves. Instantly, Romano's vision blurred, making it impossible for him to fight as usual. Taking advantage of the opportunity, Short viciously attacked him, beating him mercilessly. Despite the injuries and the blood pouring from him, Romano showed no signs of stopping, as if he were enjoying every moment of torturing his opponent. Tommy, watching from his position in the ring, couldn't stand the brutal scene. He rushed to the bell and rang it, forcing the match to stop immediately.
Stop the fight!
When the fight ended, Romano lay unconscious in the corner of the ring, unable to fight back. Back home, Tommy received a call from his father. His voice sounded strange, as if everything was still normal. He only asked about Tommy's well-being and informed him that their plans to return had to be postponed because there was still some unfinished business. The next day, Tommy visited Romano in the hospital, and his pain intensified when he saw his friend still in a coma. Doctors confirmed that Romano was brain dead, and Tommy felt as if his world had collapsed. Anger and frustration surged within him, and Tommy knew he couldn't let the man who harmed his friend get away with it. The opportunity for revenge came when he faced Short in a life or death match in the ring. Once again, Short tried to sneakily use a dirty trick during his fight with Tommy. However, this time his underhanded move was ineffective, as Tommy had already recognized his trick from the previous battle with Romano, when the mysterious liquid dripped onto the gloves. Not allowing himself to be deceived again, Tommy decided to fight on his own terms. He landed a kick to Short's groin, causing him to double over in pain, and immediately followed up with a series of powerful punches. Tommy ultimately won the fight in the first round. When Romano passed away, Lincoln became the only friend left by Tommy to his side. However, one day during training, Lincoln suddenly felt his body weakening and unexpectedly collapsed. After an examination, doctors discovered that he had suffered a brain injury from a strong blow to the head the previous week. This explained why he suddenly lost strength and was advised to take at least 60 days off from boxing to recover. Lincoln was warned that if he continued fighting, he could face permanent brain injury. However, Horn had a different plan for him. That evening, Tommy was surprised to see the opponent he was supposed to fight next facing off against another boxer. Worried, he went to meet with Horn to clarify the situation. That's when Horn revealed his plan. He wanted Tommy to fight none other than Lincoln. This made Tommy both angry and disappointed. Lincoln's current condition didn't allow him to keep fighting, and Tommy didn't want to lose another friend. Despite Tommy's pleas, Lincoln remained determined to step into the ring and face his opponent. For Lincoln, this was a rare opportunity to prove himself and gain attention from Horn, who had promised to take him to the professional level if he won this fight. Realizing he couldn't change Lincoln's mind, Tommy decided to meet with Horn, attempting to persuade him to call off the match. Corral Lincoln. However, all his efforts were in vain. Day by day, the fight between Lincoln and Tommy drew closer. This was the most important battle in the underground boxing world, and of course, Dawn couldn't miss the chance to cheer for her boyfriend. However, in contrast to Lincoln's excitement, Tommy felt heavy-hearted, not nearly as eager as his opponent. As soon as the first bell rang, Lincoln immediately charged at Tommy with a series of powerful punches. Meanwhile, Tommy adopted a passive stance, not fighting back even though Lincoln landed several hits on him. Tommy's approach clearly angered Lincoln. If the fight continued like this, neither of them would earn the respect of the audience. Horn couldn't stand the fight becoming boring either. The crowd was disappointed, and in the second half of the round, Horn threatened Tommy, telling him that if he didn't fight seriously, he would have Dawn arrested and could do anything to her. However, despite the threat, Tommy still couldn't bring himself to hit Lincoln, as one strong blow could have serious consequences, even death. So to meet Horn's demands and please the crowd, Tommy reluctantly decided to strike Lincoln. Tommy tried to convince Lincoln to stop, arguing that even if one of them died, Horn wouldn't care, as all he cared about was money. But Lincoln responded by attacking Tommy's head without hesitation. Realizing that all attempts to reason with Lincoln were futile, Tommy gave up on trying to change his mind. If Lincoln still wanted to make money from Horn, Tommy told him to use all his strength to fight him. However, something unexpected happened when Lincoln finally realized the truth. In Tommy's words, everything was wrong. They didn't need to fight in this match. Deciding to stop without finishing the fight, Lincoln disappointed the audience. Horn, not only disappointed but also furious, immediately climbed into the ring and ordered Lincoln to continue the fight. Stubbornly refused his command, making everything more tense than ever. Horn lost control of his anger. He charged and struck Lincoln straight in the head, knocking him out of the ring. Tommy felt that Horn had gone too far, so Tommy decided to step into the ring and challenge Horn to a one-on-one fight right then and there. Tommy set the terms: if he won, Horn would have to pay off his father's debt. But if Horn won, Tommy would have to work for him forever. Horn didn't hesitate to accept the challenge, but he made one condition of his own: they would fight without gloves. As a former boxing champion, Horn had a lot of experience, which allowed him to gain the upper hand right from the start of the fight. His overconfidence was evident as he mocked and insulted Tommy, but it was this arrogance that became his biggest weakness. Despite being young, Tommy was not only strong but also very intelligent. He quickly observed and learned how to fight Horn, using these tactics to turn the tide. First, Tommy allowed Horn to attack him, resulting in one of Horn's fingers getting broken. Then, he deliberately provoked Horn in the same way he had been mocked at the beginning of the fight. When he saw Horn react with anger, Tommy realized that his opponent's fury was his greatest vulnerability. However, that alone was not enough to defeat Horn. Tommy cleverly pretended to have broken his right arm, catching Horn off guard. At the right moment, he landed a punch to Horn's face, followed by 13 powerful punches that sent his opponent to the ground. By defeating Horn, Tommy and his father were finally freed from the massive debt. The profound lesson from this film is about self-control. Don't let habits like gambling take over your life, as they not only harm you financially but can also lead to serious consequences. Gambling can drag you into debt, or worse, make you a target for threats, harming both yourself and your family.